Each company has their own values, the way they communicate, the way that they like people to work and interact. And based on that, those are the metrics and those are the ways that people should think about hiring versus how much is this going to cost. It's really who's going to be the best culture fit and who's going to do the best job in this particular role.
Hi, everyone. This is Brent with AMZ Pathfinder's Beyond PPC podcast, the show where we talk about things that are not Amazon advertising, and we have on guests that have areas of speciality that is outside of Amazon or Amazon advertising. So this time, I'm really happy to have on the show Anna Shcherbyna, who is a longtime friend of mine. We were just talking about it before the show, maybe 10 years, who even knows? Who is the CEO and founder of Remotivate.com. And yeah, this is a remote recruitment agency helping online businesses find and hire international top tier remote talent. You have 13 years doing this, which is incredible. Remote team building operations, and you have led hundreds of successful hires for fast growing companies around the world. Originally from Ukraine, now based in Barcelona, Spain. She's passionate about building international business, creating freedom through remote work, and helping founders scale with the right people in place. Thank you, Anna, for the great intro and for coming on the show. Much appreciated.
Yeah, thank you so much, Brent, for having me. It's honestly a pleasure.
All right, so let's start off with something a little bit lighter before we dive into the recruitment side of things. How is it that you actually got started in the recruitment space after all? 13 years of experience is a really long time.
Yeah, that's a great question. It's fascinating. So, in regards to how I started in the space of operations and recruiting, I walked into an office in Ukraine. I was very worried I was losing my English, which is very ironic based on how I sound. But I was living in Ukraine at the time, and I was like, oh, I need people to talk to in English. I miss English so much. And I walk into this office, and apparently they were doing exchange programs all over the world. And they heard me talk, and they're like, can we hire you? I don't think you need the English club, but we'd like to hire you instead. And I got the job, and I ended up working there for 5 years doing international fairs, sending people abroad, hiring in the Emirates. I mean, it was quite incredible experience. And then the same thing happened for starting the business. Like, I never really set out to start a business. It kind of, people were asking me if I could hire, if I could help hire. And then it escalated to the point where I needed to bring on people and build a team. And so my career kind of happened to me. I didn't really ever choose this career or even choose to start a business, to be honest.
Yeah, okay, fascinating. But you had an inspirational moment, I guess, when you were like, I need to maintain my level of English.
Yes.
And then that was like what sparked that whole trajectory, which is pretty incredible. And I didn't actually know that about you, like the 5 years of working and doing that international stuff, as long as I've known you. That's really cool. So actually, let's address the elephant in the room. How is your English so damn good anyway? Because I know you're from Ukraine. I know your native language is Russian, right? And
well, yes,
some Ukrainian as well. But like,
yeah,
like what? How did this happen?
Yeah, it's so fascinating. So I'm from the east part of Ukraine, which is why I primarily speak Russian. And because I grew up abroad, my Ukrainian wasn't that great. The funny thing is I grew up in Boston. So that's why like all my formative years, like elementary school, middle school, and even then afterwards I did homeschooling, everything was in English. And so my English is actually better than my Russian. So if people say what your native tongue is, to be honest, English is more of my native tongue than Russian or Ukrainian is.
Yeah, that's crazy. I remember the first time I met you, I actually just assumed you were just from like Connecticut or something like that. I had no recollection.
East Coast.
Oh no, she's actually from Ukraine. And at that time, I had never been to Ukraine, and I was like, I barely know where that is. So yeah, very cool, awesome. Well, that's the kind of life story a lot of interesting people you and I know in the digital nomad community, the online business space. And that actually brings us to one of the first questions I had for you. So it's like, what are the biggest trends that you're seeing in recruitment at the moment? You got your finger on the pulse of this. You're doing case studies all the time. You're hiring constantly. You guys have a a school now apparently too, which we can talk about in a bit. But what are the trends? What are the big trends right now?
Yeah, that's such a great question because if I'm being honest, there's very contrasting trends. So if you asked me about 2 years ago, I would be saying that the market is dying. If you asked me 2 years ago, I'd say nobody's hiring, everyone's firing, and it's all just, it's all going downhill. Right now, it's quite fascinating because there's this contrasting view that we're seeing. So on the e-commerce side, a lot of the e-commerce or agencies that service e-commerce, because of the tariffs, we're seeing a lot of changes. And so those businesses are firing or they are changing the way that they're operating because of what's going on and anticipating those changes. But if you look at like online education, if you look at marketing agencies in general, if you look at tech companies, especially ones that are backed with like by AI and like SaaS AI platforms and things like that, those are really on the rise. I mean, we've got clients that are hiring, multiple candidates or sometimes dozens of candidates on a monthly basis and growing absolutely insanely. A lot of that even being organic. I mean, marketing has changed too so much. And so what we're seeing is we're actually doing a lot of hiring. We are probably the busiest we've ever been, where some of our clients are reporting the complete drastic opposite. They're like, hey, we're losing clients left and right. We're just like bleeding money, or our portfolio is cutting down. And they've never seen that type of loss in years. So that's what kind of we're seeing is, being in the recruiting space is so great if you are a bit more agnostic to the type of industries that you work with. But if you are very niche, where, if 5 years ago it's like niche down, now it's kind of the opposite. You really want to be able to expand a bit more so that you are a lot more safe from what's going on with the market. And that way you can quickly kind of jump into a different industry or just a different service that you provide or who you provide that service for. So that's really fascinating in terms of what the market is doing right now.
Okay, that's a powerful message. I mean, I think of it kind of like diversifying an investment portfolio. You just put all your money on one stock or a bond. You want to have, a percentage over here, a percentage over there. Maybe you invest in a company. Maybe you put some in gold. It's like maybe you do crypto. It's all this kind of breakdown of different diversified assets. And so, I mean, I can also relate personally to what you're talking about. I mean, we as an Amazon services agency, something happens with Amazon and we're downstream of that, no matter what it is, if it's good or bad. So yeah, can relate to some of those pains. And I know many people I speak with who are also like remote companies are experiencing the same problems. Yeah, I guess the next question I have is actually about who you're doing recruitment for, because that's like the important piece. These are mostly remote teams, right? You really focus on remote companies. And are you looking only at the executive and like higher level? Because I know we've worked together in the past and you've helped me find some people that were definitely, like C-suite caliber individuals, not exactly frontline workers doing some of the lower level stuff, but definitely like higher caliber people. Is that like what you're focused on? And why remote anyway? What's the focus?
Yeah. So let's kind of work our way backwards. So why remote? Well, remote work changed my life. And so I am the biggest advocate of the remote space. I go to all the remote conferences, all of the online entrepreneur conferences. I think remote work is definitely the future. And especially for countries that, it's a lot harder to really earn and provide for your family. Remote work just creates this incredible opportunity of going beyond what is possible within that country. In regards to what we do, we actually started hiring in leadership. Just because my background is operations, the biggest role that was the most popular, I would say, is that a lot of entrepreneurs came to me and say, hey, Anna, can you just hire you? That was what they would actually say. They're like, can you just hire an operator just like you? And so we ended up hiring operations managers, and then through the years kind of building it up to the C-suite. But then about 2 years ago, when everyone started firing and things kind of started crashing down, the needs changed. And that's why we've tried to really respond to the market and be very proactive in the way that we do our services and what we provide. So instead of focusing, hey, we just do leadership or C-suite, we decided, hey, we're going to provide to our ideal clients, our avatar, but still to the type of clients we work with, but we're going to expand. And this is what I mean about really, as you said, diversifying, right? And so now we pretty much hire for I would say anywhere from a specialist, even junior roles, all the way up to C-suite, whatever our clients need, we're now able to provide. And we're even now breaking into tech. And now I'm working with more tech companies. We've hired tech recruiters. And so we're always trying to be very proactive in what the market is doing and how we can diversify to be able to hire based on what our clients' needs are. And the last question, because you did ask, who do we work with? I'm working my way backwards here. We actually work with remote first businesses, but it usually falls under the umbrella of online education, consulting, courses, all of that. Agencies, so any kinds of agencies, service providers. Sometimes that's marketing, sometimes that's finance, and then e-commerce businesses. We do work with actually quite a few very successful big e-commerce businesses and brands that are not as affected by what's happening right now in the market. And so those would be our three primary, and then a little bit of SaaS and tech on the side.
Right. I didn't even know about the SaaS and tech because I know you mostly for the agency work because of course we've used your services and done well with that, but also the e-com side because I think we've also referred you to some clients here and there in the past who are some of our larger clients looking to hire and go through that funnel. Yeah, I guess the AI boom is affecting you like it's affecting everyone else, which is like all of a sudden having a skill set in AI is like one of the hottest things out there. Like, you see a lot of salary benchmarking, I'm sure. So is it the case that people like working in AI, is that like what it used to be like if you worked at Facebook in like 2015, where it was like, you just, it's like infinite money. It's like, pay me this much. And Facebook was like, yes, no problem. It's that way for AI now.
Absolutely. That's where the money is. I mean, I remember this was like a year ago or something where we had a client come to us in the AI space. We didn't end up moving forward because at the time we didn't really have the resources to hire for the tech space where we are now. But at the time, I remember we having that conversation. He's like, we're ready to hire an AI developer. We're happy to pay like $300,000 plus a year. Like if they know what they're doing, we don't care where they're from. We don't care if they want to work 40 hours or 30 hours. We have money and we need a good a leader. But they were very, very specific with the kind of requirements. And I think that's something that people don't anticipate. Like with AI, the amount of requirements and knowledge that you really need to know to be able to go into those roles that are paying like 200, 300K a year. I mean, you have to be very technical and very well-rounded and very on top of on top of trends. So it's
probably
but
the
lots of
fastest
money.
Moving industry out there right now too. I mean, AI
Definitely.
is moving so fast. Speaking of which, one of the questions I want to ask you is like, what are you doing with AI? Are you using AI in the recruitment process? I imagine there's all kinds of interesting flows you could set up on make.com or N8N or something similar to connect all these different platforms together and help you screen candidates and even review CVs and videos or something. So I don't know, how are you bringing that into the company right now?
That's so fascinating because I feel like a lot of candidates, we get messages on a regular basis on LinkedIn of candidates saying, your robots didn't properly review our resume or our LinkedIn, and like, you guys are not even doing the proper review and just rejecting me because of a robot. And it's very funny because our done for you service, our main recruiting service, is done completely manually. I mean, we have a very lean team. We do have a lot of automations to be able to help us process those candidates, but we are looking at thousands and thousands of applications on a weekly basis, and every single person is processed by a physical human being. It's not an ATS that's just screening and sifting through, because we know that there's a human factor, and we believe in that human factor when it comes to seeing if a candidate is the right fit. So every video, every application is physically reviewed by a human. But having said that, we are integrating AI in a new tool that we launched. Actually, literally as we're speaking, we're launching this, but it's called Remotivate Hire, and it's pretty amazing because it's what people are looking for, right? It's the future of recruiting, and that is using AI to be able to. It's going to be like an upgraded job board experience. So now you post a job, and then that's it. You don't know like what you're going to get, who you're going to get. Whereas we're integrating AI, it's going to help you write the job description. It's going to invite the candidates. It's going to shortlist the candidates for you. It's going to create this really seamless experience for literally the same price as a job board. So we're actually launching that in the next week or so. And it's going to be pretty cool, but it is integrating a lot of AI in there to help with the recruiting process for those that are in kind of the early stages or looking for a more affordable option.
Wow. Okay. What's that called again?
It's called remotivatehire.com.
Oh, okay. Just go to that website, and that's where it actually lives.
Yeah,
Okay,
pretty
so it's kind of
much.
behind the scenes, but I like the idea that it's like the machine doing the repetitive work and kind of teeing everything up for you so that the human element still exists there. It's kind of how I see some PPC software. It's like it'll do a lot of stuff automated for you, but there's still a human part that needs to look at ad copy or advertising campaigns or creative to have taste and to know and understand who it's for, and then that is what we're being paid for, essentially as a company, is
Absolutely.
to have that experience and taste. Cool. Okay. So just to review, I mean, yeah, remote work has made your life amazing. It's made my life fun too, to remote. And I know, speaking from a Ukrainian background too, it's like a big thing there where like people are developers and that's a way for them to earn like really good livings as well, from companies that are not in Ukraine, of course, but are from like, let's say, Western Europe or America or stuff. So I get why that is a thing you've had a lot of experience with over the years. Let's ask some other like hiring specific questions, let's call it. What is a really important hire that people don't think about until it's too late?
That's my favorite question. How did you know?
Because we talked the other day and you told me about this.
This is literally my favorite question. If you look at my LinkedIn right now, every post I'm making is literally on this topic because I'm so passionate about it. The biggest role that you should be hiring for is the one that is unseen, unappreciated, not counted as like an ROI, a clear ROI for it. And that's the operations manager, right? It is the person that is steering the ship of your ship every single day, maintaining the ship, maintaining the crew, running all of the back end. And I think it's just so unappreciated because a lot of entrepreneurs focus on the clear ROI, the ad specialists, the marketing roles that they kind of can clearly see, hey, we're going to launch an ad and here's how much we're going to make. But the thing is, if you can't deliver on the service that you're providing, if you don't have someone taking care of the team that's providing on that service, you're not going to have a service, right? Like you can sell as much as you want, but at the end of the day, your business is not going to survive if you can't actually deliver, whether that's a product or a service. So operations is literally the heart of any business.
Well, at least you're not going to have clients stick around after a couple months because they're going to churn out once they discover that things aren't as they were promised, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I would even add to that, Anna, like the onboarding experience. Like Laura, who he works at Pathfinder and has been part of the team for many years, is my right hand for many years and was our operations person. Like she was so critical to everything, like the perpetuation and survival and expansion of Pathfinder over the years. And I'm always eternally grateful to her for that. But it's no secret to me how important that skill set is, mostly because I know what my weaknesses are and I know that she covers for those. And the same is true, the other way around. And that's like a nice thing to have in a business. Yeah. So I think a lot of founders, they are the operations person, right?
I think we actually hired her, didn't we? If I'm not mistaken.
I think we got Laura from the Dynamite Jobs board.
Are you sure? Because I swear we hired her for you guys, and then she ended up staying. And I met up with her in person in Kiev at some point, and we were talking about how we ended up hiring her and hiring others, and then working with her to hire other people. Like, for some reason, I remember that we went through that, but this is exactly it. Like that role changed the trajectory of your business, and that whether we hire someone else, but it's like that operations role changes businesses, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure. And it is not as, let's say, ROI accretive as other roles because it's considered like admin. But like, yeah, to put it on the P&L and just write it off like that is really a big mistake. So I agree. I love it. Cool. Yeah, that's a great thing to make content on too. So what is something that businesses don't consider when hiring internationally? I feel like, and let me know if this is true, for years I was telling people, oh, Pathfinder, we're a totally remote team. And people would say, oh, wow, that's so interesting. How does that work? What do you do? How do you make sure people are at their desks or doing whatever, all kinds of crazy questions, good and bad. And then COVID happened. And then post-COVID, I would tell people, we're a remote team, and it would be crickets. No one cared. No one said anything. Because at that point, everybody was a remote team, for a while. So it was nothing new anymore. Still, there are a lot of mistakes that companies have made and are probably still making when they go through this kind of remotization, let's call it, of a company. Whether it's forced by a pandemic or whether it's voluntary now, 2025. So yeah, what are the mistakes here?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like a lot of business owners, when they're hiring internationally, they're focused on a couple things. One, they're looking at what's the most affordable option? I mean, let's be honest. That is what most entrepreneurs are looking for. And so that's why you have people saying, hey, I'm going to go ahead and, let's say hire out of the Philippines or Eastern Europe or whatnot. And so they heavily focus on more so on how much it's going to cost their business versus who's going to be the best fit for the job. And I think there's a bit of a misconception. And we've seen the other side of the coin too, where people are like, hey, I need a CMO. So I'm going to hire the most expensive $200K a year CMO from the United States or from Canada or whatnot. And it's really surprising to me because you really want to be hiring for the best, not for based on what the price is or what the salary range is. And what is even more important is hiring for the culture, right? Because very often I'll have business owners say, hey, and this is actually a direct example. I had a client say, hey, we're looking to really cut costs. We decided they did this on their own. They hired an entire team out of Pakistan. And I asked them afterwards, because they started telling me that they started having a lot of troubles with the Pakistani team. I said, have you hired from Pakistan before? Have you had success? And does it fit your culture? Do you have managers who know how to work with candidates out of Pakistan? And they were like, no, we just heard that it was really affordable and we thought it was great. But now we're seeing all of these issues that are coming up. And the thing is, I think you can find amazing people anywhere in the world. But that cultural piece is extremely, extremely important. I can give you a ton of examples, but my point here is I think a lot of entrepreneurs, when hiring internationally, should really think about the culture they want to hire for, especially what culture do they have. And so many different like each company has their own values, the way they communicate, the way that they like people to work and interact. And based on that, those are the metrics and those are the ways that people should think about hiring versus how much is this going to cost. It's really who's going to be the best culture fit and who's going to do the best job in this particular role.
That's a really good insight. It's a really good insight. And the reason I resonate with that is my own experience with Pathfinder and also working with other remote focused companies like many e-com businesses over the years, seeing how it's effective when a team hires, let's say, a group of people from the Philippines who are responsible for one area of the business. And they kind of have their own cultural understanding with language, but also just getting each other. And they kind of make their own little pod and group. And like that helps them become super effective. Same thing is true if you hire a bunch of Americans. They're in another department over here and they get each other's jokes. Culturally, they talk about things. That's just the way humans are. We're tribal animals. Same thing with Pakistan. We have more experience in that area actually more recently because we have a lot of people who are doing ad stuff in and from Pakistan. And yeah, they have their own kind of culture and like, I don't want to say language because I'm actually not sure how many languages there are in Pakistan. I know Urdu is the big one, but they and understand each other, right? And that is really hard to shoehorn into an existing company that maybe is 100% US or Canadian or Western European that doesn't have a context or background for that and doesn't have managers or people in the line managers that understand where these people are coming from in a cultural context. Yeah, even down to simple things like holidays. It's like, hey, it's an Islamic holiday. We have off today. It's like, okay, good. Putting that in the calendar. We have a whole thing set up for that instead of just there being confusion, because someone has a family thing to attend because it's a holiday and you have to say, okay, that's a day off for this person. Simple stuff like that.
Yeah, and I want to add here that sometimes it's not even country based. Sometimes it's actually like character or values based. And I'll give you a great example. I'm working with a company now, and from the very beginning, we asked them like, "What are your values? What is the type? What's important to you when it comes to working within this organization?" They're like, "We're very direct." And the founder is from Orlando. They have team members from all over the world, but the core piece is we are very direct. We're direct with the way that we communicate responsibilities. We're direct with feedback. We're direct with praise. Like they're very, very direct. And we were just talking about how, they had some experience hiring out of Latin America, and it was a bit challenging for them with the culture. And that is because in Latin America, directness isn't something that is quite common, I would say. It's just that there's a different culture. They're just a little bit more, laid back, a little bit more friendly. It's a little bit of a different culture. And I think it's so important when I ask like companies, hey, like what are the values? How do you guys work? And then looking at countries that really align with that, right? And so for example, in their case, they're like, we are very direct. I'm like, great, stick to North America. I mean, Mexico, Canada, stick to Europe. You've got amazing, very direct individuals coming out of Central Europe, Serbia, Romania. And those are the countries that really align for them. So I would say it's not even so much a country based, but it's the next kind of like layer I would look at is really the type of communication within the company and how they work and which countries best align with those values and the type of communication work that they do.
Got it. That's really good. So a couple layers to it: communication style, company values, cultural values of people coming from X location. And even in that, there's going to be, the world's quite globalized these days, right? There's going to be a lot of variation. Like I've had people from the Philippines who, contrary to what people might think, are actually very opinionated and very like stern. They don't just say, yes, I agree. Yes, boss. It's much more, I disagree, which is great, and that's something that we've valued at Pathfinder over the years for sure. Cool, that's a really good discussion worth having. Another question, actually, you mentioned Latin America. So I feel like for a long time it was really trendy. Okay, hire from the Philippines, and then it was hire from Central and Eastern Europe. And now all I've heard about the last 2-3 years is hire from Latin America, specifically like Central and South America. Not so much Mexico, like you said. That's a little bit more like the US, culturally speaking, I think. That seems to be very, very hot right now, very trendy. What's the next place that's going to be trendy to hire from? Because you got your finger on the pulse of this.
Yeah, we're always looking ahead, right? So yes, right now Latin America is trendy, but as I mentioned, we're always looking at more company specific. We're thinking about what's going to be the right fit. And to be completely honest, some of the best people recently that we've been hiring from have been out of Canada, right? Because I think you've got the native English, you've got incredible skills. They're working with US companies on a regular basis, so they're very familiar. They've got, if you want a contractor, they have that kind of setup, especially if you need, fewer hours or like part-time. So they understand the setup. They already know how to work with the US, and the salaries are, substantially, I would say, different from what you're seeing in the US. I mean, I'd say probably half of the cost. And it's not necessarily because salaries are lower just because, for the sake of being lower, but it's because the cost of living, and of course, we're not talking about Toronto or some of the main cities, but for the most part, if you're living in the suburbs or in other areas, the cost of living is substantially less than in the United States. And so that also impacts salaries, and you can get incredible people for a fraction of the cost. I mean, we've hired, as an example, a head of operations for $5K a month, like $5K USD a month, out of Canada, a head of operations. I mean, that's pretty much what you would be paying out of Europe, We've hired incredible, like 10 plus years experience, paid media or email marketing for like $3K a month. I mean, it's pretty crazy when you look at some of the salaries and the incredible talent that you can get out of Canada. So highly, highly recommend to look into it.
Okay, breaking news. You guys heard it here first. Canada, the next hot hiring spot. I actually recently looked at the Canadian to US like dollar conversion, and yeah, it's not the weakest it's ever been, but it's like not strong either. So yeah, there's definitely, if you're a US based company, there's probably some good value to be had there, let's say. And yeah, to my knowledge, I think Canada it needs more people. It's a very large country. So maybe we can keep them all employed. I don't know, but yeah, global businesses are incredible. That's very cool. That's very cool. So Latin America is still hot.
Still hot, but I wouldn't, again, this is the thing that I think is super important to even touch on a little bit here. Latin America is fantastic for a lot of creative roles. Latin America is great if you need like client-facing positions or marketing positions, like especially creative, social media. It's great for like customer support, sales positions, like anything that does require some creativity and like innovation, all of that. But if you're looking for somebody that like you're hiring for more like data-driven talent, very, I would say, like I said, direct, right? That was another one. Like if a personality that's a bit more direct, highly independent, there's a bit of a culture there where they're more, there's like authority, like a culture around authority and following on that authority. And so they're not what we've seen is there's a pattern where they're very good when there's very clear structures in place. But if you hire from Latin America and say, just run with this, right? Like figure it out as you go and things like that, that's not really where they're going to be thriving. And that's so important to really understand the culture you're hiring from, to be able to really support those individuals to thrive and be able to grow and blossom to the best employees. And so that's so important to understand your own culture as well as the cultures you're hiring for. So when hiring from Latin America, just keep in mind what roles are great to hire from and what roles might be best hiring from other locations as well.
Got it. Heard. Understood. Yeah, very cool. Speaking of which, when it comes to onboarding and hiring new staff, like what's a recipe for disaster? Like where do you see things go poorly? I think we've covered a lot so far where things go right. Right. You find the cultural fit for your company, for their culture. You're vetting people on their kind of values and culture as much as you are what it says on the CV and their skill set. And okay, you got you got Microsoft Word, you got Excel, you got programming, C++, you AI expert. Okay. And I know you look at a lot of CVs too, which maybe we could talk about, but what is a recipe for disaster? Like what when things go wrong with hiring 6 months in, 3 months in, whatever?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the first thing I want to mention here is that the biggest mistake employers make when it comes to hiring comes down to the onboarding in that first month. The tone that you set in the very beginning for a hire can change the entire trajectory of that relationship. You can hire the best person for the job, but if you are not clear with your expectations, what success looks like, I've heard this so often from business founders or just founders saying, this person didn't work out, this person didn't work out. And when I ask them, did you communicate what success looked like for them for this role? They're like, well, not really. I just assumed that they would know what success looks like. And I asked, well, how would they know, right? But that's a very common thing with founders and with owners is we kind of just want people to just know what we want, right? And kind of just like, well, I'll tell you some things, but I want you to kind of figure out and fill in the blanks. But that's not really how most people operate. Most employees don't operate that way. And so if you want to be successful, and you hire incredible talent, the recipe for success here is definitely make sure it's super clear and very data driven on what success looks like month 1, month 3, month 6, like on a regular basis. You really need to articulate what success looks like, especially related to KPIs.
That's valuable. I know, speaking myself as a founder of many years, there's times when I think I thought I had telepathic abilities and I was transmitting exactly what I wanted to have happen to people on my team, only to realize that they had a very different vision of what things should be and what success was like in their role. And they were striving towards those things. Don't get me wrong. It wasn't for lack of trying. It was for lack of communication on my part. So got it. Onboarding is key. We could probably go more into that, but the other thing I wanted to ask, hiring is like pretty complicated these days. What, in your opinion, is like the 80/20? How do you like simplify the hiring process? Because I know you guys have a lot of things you follow and, ways you find people and you keep them, I think, you keep them like in kind of like a Rolodex of sorts, right? Where you say, oh, this person we found, they weren't good for this role, but man, they're great for that role. Or we'll touch back with them in 6 months and see where they are. But, how do you simplify it actually?
Absolutely. It's going to be a bit of a controversial answer.
Ooh, here we go. Okay.
It is a bit of a controversial answer.
The YouTube thumbnail. Here it comes.
The thing is, I think a lot of business owners try to simplify the process. And by doing so, they complicate matters. They end up having a very complicated situation once the candidate is hired, right? And very often they spend a lot of time and a lot of money and a lot of energy, and sometimes the time and energy of their other employees to be able to bring on somebody. But the thing is, when you're hiring, if you could put a little bit of time before you start anything, like before you post the job, before you do before anything, if you spend a little bit of time figuring out what success looks like, again, we're coming back to success here, but what success looks like. I always say, start with the end in mind. So not the fire you're trying to plug or put out or the problem you're trying to plug in, but genuinely look at the position you're looking to hire and ask yourself, what does the end look like? What does it mean if they're with the company for a year? And what does that role look like? And lay that out very, very clearly as possible. And honestly, you could do the process in just a few steps. You can post the job on LinkedIn. You can add a link, even in the job posting, you can add a link to a form, like a Google form. And in the Google form, you can have a list of questions, of course, based on the requirements that you have. And I'll talk about that in a second. But you can have a question in the form asking them for a quick 1-minute video. And so you kind of kill a few birds with one stone by going through that process where using LinkedIn, you do a paid posting. By the way, this is an incredible hack here I'm going to share with everybody.
Okay.
Set
go
the minimum budget on LinkedIn. And LinkedIn does not want you to know this because they always say the minimum is like 20, or if you want to get candidates, pay at least $20 or $27 per day. That's a lie. It's an absolute lie. You can set the budget down to about $5 or $6 a day. And nobody does this because it usually is like against LinkedIn recommendations. It's going to light up red saying, warning, you won't get any candidates. But you can set the budget to $5 a day. And when you do that, you're going to spend very little money. You're going to get hundreds. If this is a remote role, you're going to get hundreds of candidates within about 3 to 4 days on that budget. And when people start going through your form, obviously, this is a quick thing you can do as well. Take the responsibilities that you put into your job description and put it into ChatGPT and ask it to turn that into questions. And you can take those questions, put that in your form. So you don't have to think of the questions. The ChatGPT can turn your responsibilities and requirements into questions. Any logistical things like you can add in there. That's like first section would be like work experience, but you can add a few logistical questions like what's the time zone you're comfortable working with? Are you open to full-time, etc. Anything that's on the logistics side. And of course, having them do a 1-minute video and boom, like already one platform for sourcing. You have a form collecting videos and responses. And then you just have a VA or somebody on your team quickly review the candidates based on what their responses are and pick the top, 5, 10 for interviews. And that's it. You don't need to interview 50, 100, 300 people. You interview 5, 10 of the best. And you can pretty much have anyone on your team that, can just look through based on the requirements of what the candidate put, be able to pick out, the top 5, 10 for those interviews. And that's it. Like, it doesn't have to be rocket science, I promise. And I'm going to say this last thing here. When you do the forms, you can actually pick what the right answer is. So you can set it up so it's not open-ended. I know a lot of business owners do the open-ended questions, but if you actually say, let's say, how many years of experience do you have, and create multiple answers, like 1 year, 5 years, whatever, like create like the multiple choice options, you can select on the form what the option should be for it to be successful. So you can see the scores of the questionnaires.
Oh, so it's like marked green, like this is the correct answer, because we want someone with 3+ years essentially. And if they say 1, too bad, but
that's a great example. So for example, you can mark let's say like 1 to 3, or like 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 5, 5+, and you can say if anybody says 3 to 5, 5+, those are both are correct answers. And then when you look at the forms, you can actually see the score. So it's going to say like 80 out of 100, 90 out of 100, and that way the person that's reviewing all of those forms doesn't have to actually think about all the answers or read through every single answer if they're open-ended. If you put that scoring system, they just can see, oh, this person's 90 out of 100, and they have to watch the video, and you get much faster turnaround time for reviewing those applications.
So they do have like a metric to work with, like from the get-go.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
And we love the video too, Anna. That's like one of the things that we've used for years with hiring is the 1-minute video, or why not? How about 1.5, 2 minutes, however long they want to go on for. I mean, if someone asked me to make a 1-minute video, I would struggle. So I'd be like, no, how about 5? Is 5 minutes good? But such a great thing because it lets you see kind of their presentation of how they present themselves, like the way that they kind of carry themselves, the way that they speak about the things that you have asked them about. If they do it with a lot of confidence, you're like, okay, yeah, they know what they're doing here. If they're reading just off a screen, it's like, oh, that's a bit suspicious. So yeah, that reveals so much. A 1-minute video is very powerful, and everyone should have the ability technically to be able to do that too. I guess that's one of the barriers to entry, right? If someone can't do a 1-minute video, that's already
yeah, but I would say like the biggest takeaway here should be the way to simplify your process is to spend a little bit of time up front setting that up, right? And we have ChatGPT now, so it creates the job description for you practically. It can create all of the questions. You just copy paste it into the form, set up the right answers. You have the video requirement there, and boom, like it's a little bit of setup, but starting with the end in mind and doing that is going to save you so much time for the hiring process. All of a sudden, you're not having to read a bunch of answers. You're not having to read so many CVs and trying to dig into every single one of those hundreds of people to figure out who's going to be the right fit because you tried to 80-20 the very beginning of the process. Spend a few extra hours in the beginning will save you dozens of hours through the actual process. I mean, it seems so obvious, but for a lot of people, it's counterintuitive because they're trying to launch it, go quickly, just let's get it out there. And then all of a sudden they're going to spend, or somebody on their team is going to spend, dozens of hours going through that. So,
right.
Yeah.
On the back end. Yeah. Cause I think the impetus sometimes when hiring is we need to go fast. Like we need to move fast for this role. We got to hire this person quick. And fast does not always equal, quality. And so what your argument is yeah, put some more time into that. Well, thanks for telling us how your whole business works, Anna. I really appreciate it.
Well, believe it or not, we're very, very open with exactly how we work. And I do so many webinars and talks on this because at the end of the day, I'm a very big advocate of let me tell you exactly what we do. And you can go and do it yourself, or you might say, I'd rather not. And right, I'll just leave it to you guys.
It is still work. It's just like ads. Yes. It's like, here's our ad strategy. Well, go and try to execute it yourself. And I don't know where I got this quote from, but yeah, reality is very complex, right? As soon as you start to dig into something, you're like, oh, and I was talking about that form, but like, wait, how do we set up the form? And it's like, oh no, they have a process for this, but when you do it yourself, You have to figure it out, soup to nuts again. So to wrap it up here, like what else are you guys working on at Remotivate? I mean, you have you mentioned you have the job board, okay? You got the AI tool. And you got your hands on all kinds of stuff. What else is going on?
Yeah, I mean, so we have the main agency, right? That's the letsremotivate.com where we do the full done for you. And I mean, we take care of the entire process from start to finish. We do the test project, we do references, like we do the whole thing. And that's our main service. We have a school for candidates that helps educate candidates on how to go through a recruiting process, what are the best practices, how to prep their materials. That's remotivateschool.com. We have our job board, which is remotivatejobs.com. And through that, we're going to be offering the new service as well, which is going to be an upgraded job board experience pretty much. It's going to use AI. It's literally for you're going to be very surprised here. For $500 and within 2 weeks, we're going to launch a process for you. We're going to distribute the role across multiple different platforms. Our recruiter is going to shortlist candidates for you. And all you have to do is watch your email. And when a shortlisted candidate comes up, you check them out and you click interview. And that's $500.
Yeah, that's pretty nice. That's and for anyone out there who has no reference for that, that's extremely affordable, let's say. So already starting to see AI impact all these different all these different industries and, drive down costs for areas that might have been higher cost in the past because of labor costs and time. Yeah. Cool. Very cool. Well, I know you got a pretty good development team on your end too, from what I've heard you talk about. So, yeah. And you guys are how big these days? 20 something people, you said?
Now we're at 16 or 17. I don't hire anymore. So I don't even meet some of the new people until like 3 months in. But we should be around 20 by the end of the year. That's kind of the plan.
That's amazing. That's great. Well, it's awesome to see your success. Man, 2025 is going to be a good year for you. It sounds like that's fantastic. And thanks for coming on the show. Yeah. If people want to find you in particular, where can they go? Where's the best place to follow
Absolutely. They can obviously go to letsremotivate.com, book a call with me directly on there. They can email me at anna@letsremotivate.com or find me at LinkedIn, but using the name because my name is a bit complicated, but they can find me on LinkedIn as well.
Okay. Awesome. Fantastic. Thanks so much for coming on. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Brent. It was a pleasure.